This is a monotype, and this is a monotype is one off. Mono is one, of course, and type is print. So it's a one-time print, and to achieve that, I painted on glass, and then printed that off the glass. The envelope, the subject, is the bombing of London, and I saw this in 1942, and I was born in 1938. So this was my first drawings. Really, were the bombing of London. I saw the planes. I was living at that time in Bexley in Kent, and that was 12 miles from the centre of London. And these planes then came over our house, and they went on to bomb London. And my father was here's another one of the other thing that we had a problem with was doodle bugs, and they were a sort of rocket thing that came over. And this was meant to be my house, and then the planes coming over. This was meant to be an English plane, and those were German planes. And I had seen this in London in the 40s. This is another monotype, and the story behind this one was that my father worked for. He worked. My father actually was a commercial artist and did reclama posters for the war, in the war, but in the evening. He was in a thing called, there was a program on television called Dad's Army, and he was a sergeant in this home guard, as they called it. And he had this cannon, and there's one story from this. I saw him on a Sunday morning with this cannon and 3 soldiers, and they fired the cannon in the air, and then they went... moved the cannon to another street and fired again in the air. And the idea was that as the Germans came over, they'd think there were lots of soldiers down below and with loads of cannons. And in fact, it was my father with 3 guys. The English always make humour out of a bad situation. Actually, when you look back at the Second World War, the English were doing it in a different way than the Germans. The Germans were trying to dominate everything, and the English were trying to get rid of them. And that's why we called them Germans. They were called germs. A germ is something that is not very nice. You don't want to have a germ. And they have lots of funny words for Germans. Anyway, this is a drawing that I did when I was in 19. I went into the RAF for 3 years. I got married then, and I made this drawing in the billet when I was in the RAF. This I'm going to show you now, a picture of that from that time, and this is now my ex-wife. This is my ex-wife here. This is my daughter Zelda. I made this picture originally when I was in the RAF, and behind here are all the students from what was Bromley College of Art then, and the background here is Hastings. And we went for I was in the RAF, and my daughter was born in December, and in the summer we went to Hastings. So that was an idea from that period. This picture was shown at the Royal Academy Summer Show in 1960, I think it was 1961. And I was at that time, I painted this when I was between 19 and 20, and I was the youngest person to have a picture in the Royal Academy that year in 1960. Now when I send work in there, they don't hang it, so I must have got worse or something. This is a picture also shown at the Royal Academy of Arts. Um, this was this was done in 1966. This painting, and I'd finished. I did 4 years at the Royal Academy from 1960 to 64, and at the time I was doing this, I was involved with the music. We had a group called the Brothers Grimm, and that is me, and that is my brother, and we made this music, and Chas Charnley from the Animals said that our music was psychedelic, and so I called this picture Psychedelic Grimm Brothers, and because he said our music was psychedelic, and the jacket I've got on that I've painted was also the same, from the same period. This was to do with we played with the Pink Floyd and Manfred Mann and Mungo Jerry and all those people in the 60s, and clubs in London, and I got these ideas from when we were playing, because we had a light show which I got from the Pink Floyd, and the lighting, you had these sort of patterns. I played the drums, and I was sitting at the back playing the drums, and you've got the lighting with all these sort of patterns in it, and that came over. In the day, I'd paint these pictures, and then at night we play in these clubs in London. Well, the UFO was one place where we used to play with the Pink Floyd, and we had Matthew Fisher from the Procol Harum, Matthew Fisher made the Whiter Shade of Pale whilst he was still playing for us. We in fact played. The whole story about the Whiter Shade of Pale is we were playing in a club in Cromwell Road, and Gary Brooker, who wrote the Whiter Shade of Pale, was sitting on the table writing the Whiter Shade of Pale, and we were and while we were playing, and if you listen to the words of the song, it says, "And the miller told his ghostly tale," and that was to do with my brother singing. In fact, we sung 3 songs in that posh nightclub in Kensington, and in Cromwell Road, and we got thrown off the stage. The manager came along and said, our music, songs like "Bomb's Gonna Drop on New York City," "Look at that bomb, it looks so pretty," they were not really suitable for the his guests he had in the nightclub. They weren't the sort of songs that they wanted to hear there. And of course, then my brother makes up another song about ghastly people throwing people out of nightclubs who don't know what they're talking about. This is a picture that I painted. I took a long time painting this, and this is really my idea of this painting. All my paintings always have there's some kind of theme behind them, and this is the idea of this was patterns over a time, over a period. So you've got patterns from, I was thinking, from 1930 up to present day, sort of. And this pattern on the outside here was sort of 1930s. This is a reclama for cigarettes, and that was taken from a poster that my father did. And my father did that probably in the 30s or 40s, and which is typical. The costume the woman's got on is typical of that period. And and this sort of pattern here was something that I used in the 60s. That's typical 60s pattern, and this was kind of the idea here was a kind of pattern cascading down falling and then becoming a set pattern. I've done a lot of paintings called falling into the set pattern of life. I think I use patterns, but I think also that our life has a pattern, and we get set in that pattern for some reason or other, and we like a river, we're flowing, and we flow in that pattern, and you get set in that. You can't get out of the river, and you just have to make the best you can of the flow that you're in. And that was really what this is. I'm making it up a bit as I go along, but I get these ideas in my head. They're probably not so strong, and but they as I start talking about it, it comes better over. And as I say, this is a falling pattern. We're falling into that pattern of life, and then it becomes set into things like these patterns. And so, this was a pattern of kind of wallpaper that I did when I was younger. This is a painting of Wales. I was living in Wales before I came to Meppel, and this is called Arthur's Rock in Wales. Wales is a beautiful place with nice sea and very nice scenery there. This is also Wales, same area. I was living on the Gower Peninsula. I had a studio there, and I used to teach I taught at the Royal Academy Schools and at Medway College of Art, and I used to travel from this beautiful place to London every week to do my teaching. This other painting here is also in England. This is Brighton. It's not really finished, but I never work from photos. I always like to work on the spot, because there you get you get a feeling for the place. People are moving about, a dog will walk across, or like I was painting the other day and a cat got run over on the road, and that atmosphere then gets into your paintings. This was my girlfriend Mariana that I met in Wales, and you can see how beautiful she is, and that is why I moved here. When I got to Holland, I started doing this type of picture. This is a fairly recent picture of Meppel, where I'm living now, where my gallery is. This is the town. It was when I moved here 30 years ago, in 1979. I did my first painting in Meppel. It was all these old buildings and no parking meters, and everything went along at a very nice pace. It's all changed a bit now. Now this is a painting of Nashville, and I went to Nashville after I'd been painting in Meppel for a few years. I came in contact with someone who had a gallery in Nashville, and so I went to Nashville, Tennessee, for a few weeks for an exhibition, a few months. And this is 2nd Avenue in Nashville, and again I put my easel up. These girls were working in this coffee shop. It was kind of let as with different shops in there, and they were working in there. I used to go in there and get free food and free drink. This is another painting of Paris, and there's a whole story over this picture. I was painting in this area, and a man came along and he said to me he wanted this particular view. Gauguin had lived in this house here originally, and he wanted this view. So I started painting it, and every day the man came along and saw what I was doing. He asked me to eat with him in his flat, and in the meantime a woman came along with a dog, and she said she would like to buy the painting from me, and her husband invited me into their house, and they had a very nice steak with them, and so I sold them this painting that I was doing for the other man. And well, I was in Paris for 3 weeks, so I thought, well, I'll go and get a canvas and I can paint another one. So I started another painting, and then I hadn't seen the man for a long time, and his son came. I was on a point to go back to Holland, and his son came to the hotel and said that his father had had a heart attack and was in hospital, but he'd buy the painting off me. So he bought it off me. So I'd sold 2 paintings from this view. The next year, I was in the same spot painting again. Along came the man who'd had the heart attack and said that he would, his house had been broken into and the painting had been stolen. The only thing they stole was my painting. I must have thought it was something special. And he said he wanted another painting at my price. Whatever price I said, he would pay that. So I doubled the price, which paid for my hotel and everything. And so it was like lightning. I was constantly painting pictures in that area and doing a lot with them. Now this is a painting that I did in Minsk, and again I went to Minsk through a there was a sort of stichting, a sort of committee here that were saving money for children, with orphan children and things in Minsk. And I saw some photos of some very nice paintings in Minsk, so I thought, I'd like to go there and see it. Well, it was a very depressing place. And this was a market in Minsk, and this woman was chopping up these pigs. They had whole pigs there, and there's a butcher at the back there, and these people like this, they're very simple people, were buying just a trotter, just a foot off the pig, or even the tail, or even just an ear. I mean, the whole pig probably didn't cost a lot of money, and I found that very interesting. Although this woman here wanted me to pay her for she wanted me to pay her for painting her. She asked me to give her some money because I was painting her. I sent this painting to the Royal Academy, but they didn't accept that. I'd made a sketch in the National Gallery in London, and I found it very interesting. This a strange woman with these funny stockings was sitting on this funny flooring with a chain in front of these pictures, and of course what I've painted on there is all silly things. That's even meant to be a portrait of myself there, and some pigs and all kinds of funny pictures I've painted there. So she's sort of looking after a load of rubbish. This is another workplace of mine. I work here, I paint here in the afternoon. Downstairs is the gallery where I exhibit my work, but here I have a bit of quiet. I can't work if the door is open from the gallery, and here I can sit up here, I can listen to some music, or put the television on and watch Dad's Army or some other Only Fools and Horses or some other English series that doesn't take a lot of thinking about. And this picture here is of Francis Bacon, and it's a triptych, and I'm still working. I'm not happy with his face at all. It's meant to be Francis Bacon walking towards me. I had seen Francis Bacon in a pub in London back in the 60s, and I'm a great admirer of his work. When I was at the academy schools, I was painting in this very free kind of way, and a teacher. Well, in fact, this is an oil painting. This is the very first oil painting I did of a model, and I was in the RAF when I painted this, and I went into Bromley College of Art, and there was a model there, and I asked the students could I paint the model. I hadn't got anything to paint on. They gave me a piece of board. I started the painting, and then we had a pause for lunch for midday, and my painting was very wet, so I put it in front of electric fire, and the thing actually caught fire, and all the students were coughing and spluttering, and they said they hadn't got another piece of board for me. And I said, oh, it didn't matter, and I went on painting over the same picture. And my paintings when I got to the Royal Academy schools this was a typical thing that I did. This is a typical painting that I did when I was first at the Royal Academy schools. I came out of the RAF. I've been in the RAF for 3 years, and we had these models at the school for a month. This is typical painting, and I was constantly moving the paint round, and it was running and moving, and the whole painting is moving. And one of the teachers said I should go and see Francis Bacon because my work was like Francis Bacon. I didn't know when I was doing this, I didn't know anything about Francis Bacon, but later I did, and I admire his work a lot. This is another painting I'm doing here. I've been doing this working on this for a rather long time. There's some flowers, a sort of still life really. That's meant to be Mrs. Thatcher there in the corner. That's meant to be Mrs. Thatcher. This is a magazine, Woman's Weekly. That was a magazine from the 60s or 70s, and that was something from Picasso. And here's a mirror here, and that is reflecting this back in that mirror, so you're getting a kind of abstracty thing from something realistic. This picture I've just done. I'm still working on it. These are poppies. I've painted these outside, and while I was painting them, this cat, Case, he ran over the road and got flattened by a car. So from my memory, I'm trying to paint him in there. I've painted him in now, and he's too small, so I'm going to make his head. I've lined that round with some blue chalk, and I'm going to paint him again with getting bigger. He's much too small, but he's a fantasy from him being run over. These are real. But this is oil paint, and this is acrylic paint, and the thing is with acrylic paint you can get the colours much brighter, although these don't look too bad from the oil. But the trouble is with the oil, you put say on a red, and I've drawn round this with black, and if the black gets into the red you'll get a kind of brown colour with the oil, which wasn't the idea. I wanted to be to get that back to good colour. You've got to paint that first white and then the red over again, otherwise it won't be bright. Although that's quite good, but I've painted that onto the white background. Normally I don't paint on a white background. I normally paint a colour over and then work on that.